We're delighted to have all of you here with us today to kick this off.
The content of the symposium will explore the convergence of structures, identities, and the built environment through the lens of Boston's past, present, and future. In a statement addressing racial injustice in the profession, the Boston Society for Architecture charged architects and designers with understanding the roles we play in perpetuating systems of oppression, and in doing so, committing ourselves to designing and building for equity. We must examine our responsibility to create lasting change. Our actions and inactions within systems, firms, and professional organizations contribute to the systemic inequities that continue to exist. Structural injustices and systemic inequities start at the policy level and pervade all aspects of the built environment through recurrent design. Planning, urban design, and development policies create our built environments, affect our natural ecological world, shape our communities, and impact our collective health. These deeply rooted problems undermine our efforts to create a better world, and they must be designed out. Each virtual session, in-person workshop, and site tour will tease out a thread in the larger fabric of Boston's built environments by focusing on the role of architects and designers in amplifying equitable solutions through issues in housing, lighting, transportation, and public spaces. Our panelists and presenters represent a diversity of backgrounds and expertise, and their varied perspectives highlight the importance of intersectionality and approaching inequities from a holistic view. Collectively, these case studies and conversations exemplify paths toward an environmentally and socially conscious Boston.
Thank you, Allie. I'd also like to take a moment to express my gratitude to the sponsors of this event. This year, we received funding from Feingold Alexander Architects, Perkins & Will, Icon Architecture, Sasaki, Lead Kennedy, Util, Landscape Forms, and McCann Kim Design.
We'd also like to thank this year's partners, A Better City, Design Museum Everywhere, and BSLA, the Boston Society of Landscape Architects.
I'd like to just give you a general overview of the sort of schedule and format for the symposium. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a hybrid multi-day event starting today and running through this Friday, the 12th. We'll quickly go through sort of the overview, and we'll provide the website link in the chat with more details about each event. So in general, I should start out by saying there's sort of a soft opening this weekend. On Saturday, we had an Inside Out event, which was a collaboration with the Boston Society of Landscape Architects. So thank you all that joined us for that. We had organizations involved leading those site tours were Perkins & Will, Livable Streets, BSLA, Stoss Landscape Urbanism, and Niche Engineering. And then for this week, every day, Monday through Friday, we'll have a virtual session, 12 to 1:30. There's 2 sessions mid-afternoon on Wednesday and Friday from 2:30 to 4. And then in the evening, we have a mix of in-person and virtual events, including an exhibit opening and an interactive workshop at the BSA space, and then ending with a site tour and an in-person happy hour in Jamaica Plain. Today, we have the Women in Design Award of Excellence, which is happening in just a moment here. And then this evening from 5:30 to 7, we have a keynote conversation between Kenneth Bailey, co-founder of Design Studio for Social Intervention, Billy Fleming of the McHarg Center at University of Pennsylvania, and Keller Easterling from Yale University Architecture. And with that, I'll hand it over to Yanel and Felice.
Thank you so much, Maren and Allie. And welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the 22nd Annual BSA Women in Design Award of Excellence program. Again, I almost said luncheon because for 20 years, this event had been a lovely lunch event where we'd mingle with our friends, make new friends, enjoy a lovely meal, all while being so inspired by the incredible awardees of the year. But this is a new era, and we still felt that a virtual celebration for this was the best choice for this year. But one thing we promise you is that even though we are not in the same physical room, but in a virtual room, you will be inspired. So grab your lunch and enjoy our program. I am Felice Silverman, and I serve as co-chair of this year's Women in Design Awards Committee, along with Yanel Dianhel, principal at Perkins and Will. And we are so thrilled to be with you today to celebrate extraordinary women, women who lead, women who create, women who mentor, women who impact, and women who inspire. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm pleased to introduce Yanel.
Thank you, Felice. Felice and I are thrilled to be partnered with Women in Design and the Boston Society of Architects for such a meaningful event, honoring women who have been an inspiration to all designers and who have contributed so much to the design industry and to our society. Before we get started, we would like to share a few tips on how to make sure that you get the most out of the Zoom experience. First, please keep yourself on mute, or if not, Madeline will make sure you are until we join the breakout rooms towards the end. This presentation is best viewed in speaker mode, and to get to speaker mode, please click on the view options and select speaker or side-by-side speaker. While we won't be taking any live questions, feel free, please, to use the chat function to congratulate, say hello to your friends, and keep up with the congratulations throughout. As Felice said, this year's format is a little different. Here's an overview of our program for today. We have a message from Greg Minott in a few minutes. He's president of the AIA BSA. And after that, we will do an overview and a history of the award. Then we will move on to the main event, hearing from our 3 awardees. At the conclusion, as I mentioned, we will join breakout rooms, so please stick around for that and get a little bit of that networking that we're missing. And yes.
Yeah, and would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible team that made this event possible. When we first heard that ABX wasn't happening, Yanel and I thought that this, important event was going to be without a home. But incredibly, the WID and BosNOMA teams mobilized and envisioned this really relevant, rich, and enlightening week-long experience that you've just heard the introduction to. We are so thrilled to be part of this important symposium. So we'd like to extend very special thanks to everyone who's been involved in putting this together this year. Very special thanks, though, to Maren Bracco, Mary McCarthy from WID, and from BosNOMA, Ali Horowitz, Julian Phillips, and Wandy Pascal. And very special thanks to the BSA team who've helped us tremendously throughout this whole event. Madeline Hikes, Billy Craig, Maha Rafiq, and Paige McWhorter for fabulous photos and videos that you're going to see throughout this presentation. And would also like to reiterate our thanks to the event sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible. Especially adding thanks to Perkins and Will, not only for their financial contribution, but for their annual in-kind donation to our event. Every year, Perkins and Will team creates all of the graphics for today's program in kind. And very special thanks goes to Anna Whistler for that. Yanel and I would also like to thank our firms, Perkins and Will and Silverman Traykowski Associates, for their time support for today's event. And now we'd like to kick off the event by introducing you to Gregory Minott, President of the Boston Society for Architecture. We are so honored that Greg has joined us today to share some of the visionary direction of the BSA. So please welcome Gregory Minott.
Thank you, Felice. I appreciate that introduction. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the vision for the BSA over the next 5 years. But before I get into all of that, I just want to really express my gratitude and thank both Women in Design and BosNOMA for the invitation, and of course for your amazing leadership to ensure that this program continued this year, because it's really timely to really have this multi-day symposium that's really focused on creating an inclusive Boston. And I just really want to congratulate you for all the work you've been doing in advancing equity in the profession. And of course, I want to congratulate this year's WID honorees. You know, the statistics from the BSA, from the AIA and the BSA, you know, continue to show that there are stubborn inequities and disparities in terms of representation for women and minorities, which many of us live out every day. And we're focused on, you know, addressing those inequities. And so increasing representation and opportunities for women have been a key focus for my presidency and continues to be a focus for the BSA at large, as we feel like this is a major step that needs to be taken in terms of being able to create an inclusive Boston and designing for all people. So to set the context for the strategic planning that we've been doing this year, which has been sort of a major focus for my presidency, and of course, all of this is kind of grounded in light of the, you know, the murder of George Floyd and the sort of racial kind of stirring that happened last year, the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, which really exacerbated a lot of inequities that we already knew that existed in our society. But with that context, the BSA, you know, embarked on a path to really redefine itself with a focus on equity in the profession. And we had, you know, amazing leadership last year under Natasha Espada, who really helped us navigate that time. You know, we had a race and architecture series and different things to address issues that were affecting BIPOC architects. And so, you know, one of the things that we found in that introspection of ourselves as the BSA is that we could have a greater impact in addressing key things for our profession in terms of disparities around mentorship, housing, design, education, and others. We also, at the same time, found as we looked inwardly that the BSA was focused maybe a little too much on programming and not enough focus on impact. So with these findings, we aligned ourselves and embarked early this year on reorienting the organization, which is sort of a major shift for the organization, and aligning ourselves with the AIA strategic plan, which focused on driving positive change through innovative application of the power of design and focused activism. And that focused on 3 priority areas, which is the first one is climate action for human and ecological health, advancing racial, ethnic, and gender equity, which has been a focus of my presidency as well. And lastly, equipping architects for success to, you know, we're rapidly changing, things are evolving very quickly, and really equipping architects to meet the world's changing needs. So you can go to the next slide. And so what does that look like for the BSA? And so in terms of our local response, there are 2 focus areas for us under that strategic plan. And the first one is, of course, advancing architecture, which, you know, through lots of conversation and workshopping, we've identified equity and climate crises as the 2 biggest threats to the architecture profession. And, you know, our goal is to continue to equip architects and designers to address those issues. The second focus here under that strategic plan is one of the things that we're calling is the Action Lab. And this was formed in response to a recognition that change is not going to happen overnight. That we have to, in order to create lasting change and impact, it will take consistent and focused and, more importantly, funded efforts over several years to create the kind of impact that we're looking for in terms of creating equitable, just, and environmentally healthy communities that can serve as a global model. Next slide. So, you know, under that Action Lab, I'm gonna, you know, highlight that for today because that is sort of a much newer concept and a big change for the BSA in terms of having impact. that we'll be able to have new opportunities for really doing a deep dive into these areas of equity and climate change. And so we'll be having fellowships and sabbaticals. We'll have a resource and idea hub, creating space for experimentation. And one thing that the BSA does well right now is as a convener, but we'll be even taking that to another level in terms of being able to create collaboration with other groups and leveraging their strengths to create sort of a multidisciplinary approach. So as an example of that for the BSA lab, one of the initiatives that I am doing this year, and this will actually be happening tomorrow and in December, is a program that's focused on expanding access for BIPOC architects, which is a workshop that will address obstacles that both minority and women-owned businesses face when pursuing public and private contracts. So we see those kind of initiatives being something that can be furthered through the work of the Action Lab over a longer period of time to make sure that we're getting the impact that we'd like to see. So the goal of the lab, in short, is to be really a force multiplier, to further the role of architects and designers and planners and the role that they can play in using their influence in design to really build for equity. So, I'm really giving you a very high-level overview of some of the things that we've been doing. It's kind of the sort of footnote version. There will be more to come at the annual meeting in December. So please stay tuned for that. And, I look forward to the program today. And, thank you for having me. And, I'm accessible to anyone that has any questions or wants to engage in any of what I've shared today. So thank you, Felice.
Thank you so much, Greg. This is amazing. What incredible progress. Thank you for your wonderful leadership of the BSA, and I can't wait to see, where this gets taken. So fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And so now we'll tell you a little bit about this prestigious award. The Women in Design Award of Excellence was started in 2000 by Sally Levine as part of the first Women in Design Network conference at Build Boston. And that was started by Gretchen Van Grossman. The criteria for the award remain essentially the same today. They are a person who works or has worked in the New England region, who is ethical, confident, and exemplifies exceptional excellence, who brings multiple experiences to work in the design of the built environment, a person whose process celebrates the long and winding road, who shares responsibilities and information and cares for others' well-being, who invites participation and encourages participation, a person whose product demonstrates exceptional excellence and reflects process, whose content of design and built work and non-design and non-built work reflect formal design issues and programmatic experience in equal measure, and a person whose success has been achieved well and then used well, who affects change and whose position in success is part of an evolving career. So on behalf of the WID Awards Committee, I sincerely want to thank anyone here today who has nominated someone, and like to point out that we have set the date for nominations for next year at July 29th, 2022. With each passing year, our task has become increasingly difficult, and this year proved no exception. The nominations included individuals doing outstanding work across a number of practice areas, architects who have spent their careers at larger traditional firms, creating noteworthy portfolios of built work, and those who have their own practices or non-designers affecting design in New England. So today, we are very pleased to recognize the achievements of 3 outstanding women, Anne-Marie Lubenau, Margie Lackner, and Hansy Barraza.
We would like to tell you a bit more about the nomination and jury process. There are some developments in the past few years. Every year, as we go through the awards process, we learn these lessons and we try to implement them to improve, make it more equitable, fair, and inclusive. And some of the recent changes include that co-chairs, Feliz and I, no longer are, we are no longer part of the jury. We are rather facilitators. The jury composition is typically 3 previous awardees are always invited, plus a few more guests, emphasizing diversity and a cross-generational overlap to grow the pipeline by giving access and opportunity to those emerging generations of women leaders. The nominations no longer roll over from year to year. In the past, nominations were kept for 3 years and then considered as part of the pool of submissions. But as you might imagine, a lot can happen in 3 years. So to be an accurate representation of the nominee, this practice has been phased out. A new nomination form now allows jury members to compare apples to apples. This has been really important for the jury because they have the wonderful task of reading through the amazing accomplishments of the nominees. And without a nomination form, it was really difficult during deliberations. We acknowledge that this is a lot of information, so we will be holding an information session in April of 2022, so stay tuned for that. Here's a glimpse of the form and the 3 sections created to help nominators, nominees, and the jury. This form will be uploaded for the next year nomination process, and it is always uploaded to our page at the BSA WID. So please think about the wonderful women who have paved the way and nominate someone next year.
And I would like to thank and recognize the jury for this year's WID Awards program. The jury had the very difficult but inspiring task of reviewing this year's esteemed nominees. As Yanel just showed you, it is a very thorough process, and we really appreciate the time that each of these jurors has put into this process. So Elisa Young is associate at Gensler, Katie Crockett, a 2020 awardee and principal at LPAA, Lynn Denninger, 2020 awardee and principal at Canon, Brooke Helgerson, WID co-chair and architect at Analog Studios, Vivian Lee, as our 2015 awardee, Sherry Wayne, 2020 awardee, vice president at Weston and Sampson. Thank you so very much. This year we met by Zoom, and each of the jury members are here today to participate in our presentation, so you'll have an opportunity to meet them. So all of you, we thank you so much for your dedication and time. This year's awardees are missing the experience of the in-person event, as we did last year as well, but Yanel and I still wanted to be able to meet them and present them with their awards and some flowers and some bubbly in person. So we held a small celebration at the BSA space. If technology allows us, we'll share the moment that they each received their awards. So it's time. Let's get on with the main event.
And I'm just going to be sharing some of the wonderful photos that Paige took of all of us at the BSA space. And it was really special time to be together sharing. And of course, Lynn Denninger wasn't able to be there, but don't worry, Lynn, we got you. We put you in no matter what. You're with us, so you're there for posterity.
I can't believe you did that. Hilarious. Thank you. Travel, work and travel. What can I say?
That's great. Okay, let's go. So I'd now like to invite jurors Brooke Helgerson and Lynn Denninger, 2020 awardee, to present our first award. We're thrilled that Brooke and Lynn are here to present the award to Anne-Marie Lubenau. Please welcome Brooke Helgerson and Lynn Denninger.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It was an honor for us all to be a part of the jury this year. We had a lot of fun. As Felice said, it was a really some hard choices because there's a lot of great work out there. So I'm here to share our comments for Anne-Marie's submission and work. Let's see where to start. I'm just looking at some notes here. So overall, Felice mentioned we evaluate for person, process, product, and position. I'm just going to talk about kind of the general comments because that's usually how the conversation goes. But we were really impressed by the body of work that Anne-Marie submitted. And throughout all of it, we found a really remarkable dedication to advocacy for increasing community engagement in urban design, sort of the work that the people are doing there. Anne-Marie has done this in several places, notably in Pittsburgh and in Cambridge in Boston, but also in several ways, and in fact spent most of her career not in a standard architectural practice, but actually going out into the community to run both local and community-centered nonprofits and national foundation-based excellence awards. What stood out to us is that in her work here, both at the CDCP in Pittsburgh as a Harvard Loeb Fellow in 2011 and 12, I believe, and then at the Bruner Foundation Rudy Bruner Award for Urban Excellence, is that the conversations and programming that she creates contributes so clearly and advances their mission and her personal mission to engage people in the process of making their neighborhoods. She's done this in a huge variety of ways, which impressed us even more, from an open speaker series to providing homeowner renovation resources, to connecting architects and planners to communities through grant programs, and even a cycling event that leads participants through the architecture neighborhoods of Pittsburgh. Under her leadership, it was clear that these have become remarkable organizations that don't just host events or confer awards, but instead thrive on encouraging participation. Anne-Marie has furthered this message even more in a large body of diverse writings at both the national and local levels. For us jurors, it was really wonderful to see the nature of these publications, but more importantly, the diverse audiences that she's written for. And she's done so much that I'm sure we are only touching the surface, even in what we reviewed. But it's clear that she's used her voice, time, and career to speak loudly for the importance of design in our cities, and we all benefit from that. We're thankful that you made it over here to Boston, and we are really looking forward to seeing what you create next. And with that, I'll hand this off to Lynn, who will give more of an introduction.
Thanks so much. Honestly, I'm thrilled to be here this afternoon and honored to be able to introduce one of these three outstanding awardees, Anne-Marie Lubenau. Honestly, I had never met Anne-Marie, but when I read her amazing submission, she had incredibly thoughtful and detailed letters of recommendation that, as just mentioned, identified her as an incredibly exceptional candidate. So I had to meet her, which it worked out. She was one of the three, so I gave her a call via Zoom, of course. And honestly, she was everything I expected her to be. She was open, honest, direct, really thoughtful about sort of where she was in life and where she was going. We chatted for probably an hour about her childhood, her love of art and design, her educations, her passions. And every track we took kind of took us back to a conversation around place and how place matters and how place and community had really impacted her in such a significant way throughout her life. I left the conversation completely amazed by her accomplishments in research, design, teaching, her advocacy, and how she was able to really leverage all of that with conversations around design that had direct impact on equity, community, and engagement. So we decided to have another date and chat again and perhaps look at her presentation. But in between those two conversations, I reached out to a few of her colleagues to hear a little bit more. And again, everyone spoke very highly of her compassionate leadership, her devotion to her students, the incredible empathy she brings to her community conversations, and really focusing on the full potential that design has on the complexities of the built environment. And honestly, I think what I heard was she's a pretty darn great person too, on top of architecture and design. So I won't go into our second conversation because I think it's a preview, more of a preview of her presentation today. So I'll only say I think you're in for a real treat. So I want to congratulate Anne-Marie again. And before we hear from her, we'll watch the celebration of her award. So congratulations, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Lubenau, we're so honored to present you with this year's 2021 Boston Society of Architects Women in Design Award of Excellence. Congratulations to you. Thank you. It's an honor. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really touched by the comments and a little overwhelmed, but I'm truly honored to be recognized with this award and to join such esteemed company. And thank you, Yanel and Felice, for your leadership in making this possible, and to my fellow awardees, and also to Mikyung Kim, who sponsored me, and to Gretchen and Renee and Andrea for your letters of support. In addition to the thrill of being recognized, this award provided a pretty wonderful opportunity to reflect on the long and winding road that led me to be doing what I'm doing today. And as Lynn mentioned, as I thought about it, I think a lot of it revolves around place. And just trying to get my slides to advance. Yep. Sorry about the delay. So part of my story is I grew up in many different places. We moved around quite a bit, and I actually lived in 6 different places by the time I was 10. So while kind of at the root of it, I'm a native of Pennsylvania. I've had this experience of living in 3 different states and in different types of cities and homes that I think provided the opportunity to experience just, you know, what it's like to be a part of different communities. And throughout this experience, one of the bedrock or touchstones for me were my 2 grandparents' homes, one in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, where both my mother and grandmother had grown up in the same house, and Alamogordo, New Mexico, where my father's parents had retired and my uncle and aunt still live. I've had a lifelong love of travel. I suspect that was sort of precipitated by traveling back and forth from my homes as a child to Alamogordo, New Mexico, and that's continued to be an important part of my life. And also, I think the experience of spending time in different landscapes, particularly the desert landscape of southern New Mexico, really, I think, helped me to appreciate the diversity of the United States and the role of culture and community in creating place. And an important part of that experience was actually, I spent first grade, or I went to first grade in Merrimack, New Hampshire. And during that time, my family made several visits to Boston and Cambridge and Harvard Square. And I have vivid memories of visiting the New England Aquarium, of seeing Faneuil Hall Marketplace under development, and the Design Research Store in Harvard Square. I to this day can remember going up and down the stairs and seeing the diversity of housewares and clothing and fabric that just really, I think, opened up for me the experience of design. And when we were living in Chevy Chase, Maryland, Terrence Conran opened his first store in the United States in Georgetown. So I had another kind of window into how we make design accessible through that experience, and growing up reading the House book and Sunset magazine. So when it came time to choose a profession, I decided on architecture, and that led me to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I received a Bachelor of Architecture degree from Carnegie Mellon, a 5-year degree largely determined by economics. And while Pittsburgh at that time was no longer the smoky city, it was very much dominated by the steel industry. And actually, my mother's father had been a rigger for Bethlehem Steel, and their parent and my grandparents' house backed onto a Bethlehem steel mill. So that was familiar territory for me. But I definitely did not really realize at the time was the year before I landed in Pittsburgh, the city had literally hit rock bottom economically. The mills had closed and the economy was in trouble, and the city was losing population. And in the midst of that too, the industrial legacy continued to play a strong role. So while the steel industry itself was disappearing, that legacy continued in the philanthropic community, and that was, born out of the renaissance that was created by the Allegheny Conference on Economic Development that led to, among other things, the creation of Point State Park. My kind of role as an architect, or I guess sort of vision as an architect, was also influenced at the time by a reading assignment we had as freshmen, The Role of the Architect in Society, which was a collection of essays by faculty at Carnegie Mellon that today we would probably call social impact design, but there really wasn't a term then. But I think that had an influence on my thinking at the time, as well as the South African architect, David Lewis, who came to Carnegie Mellon in the 60s and founded the Urban Lab. So while Carnegie Mellon, while I was there, did not have an urban design and planning program, the idea of urban design was very much embedded in the educational curricula. And actually, while I was still a student, I participated in an international forum that David convened, the Remaking Cities Conference in 1988. And just a shout out to my friend Bill Bates, who's in this photograph here as well. So I went on, I completed my degree, I became registered, I practiced, I did a lot of work in Pittsburgh communities, but on the side, I also started doing some consulting that helped me to understand the value of engaging people. And a large part of that was beginning to teach for Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation, curricula that helped, that introduced school teachers to the architecture and neighborhoods of the city. And through that experience, I really began to understand and appreciate the importance of engaging people outside our profession in design and helping them to see on many different levels the role of design, how design affects our lives. And that led me through that, over the course of that time and volunteering with organizations like Habitat for Humanity and Falling Water to look for opportunities that were maybe outside the typical office practice. And I wound up joining the Community Design Center of Pittsburgh. I realized it was 20 years ago today that I became executive director of the organization, which took me into the nonprofit sector, where I became involved in, really focused on engaging people and communities in design. And while I, again, did not realize that at the time, the Community Design Center of Pittsburgh was part of a national or even international network of community design centers that were involved in this practice, and which were born out of a challenge from Urban League President Whitney Young to architects at the 1968 AIA National Convention to find ways to help people in communities who might not otherwise be able to access our services. So over the next 13 years, I was involved with an organization that focused on improving quality of life through design of the built environment, through the programs that were mentioned, the Design Fund, a program that provided grants and technical assistance to enable nonprofit community organizations to hire architects, landscape architects, and urban planners to develop preliminary designs for strategic projects. Ren Plan, a program that coordinated 2-hour design consultations between property owners and volunteer architects to help property owners understand how they could make improvements that add value. Also, never did I imagine this in my education, but we also coordinated a bicycle ride for 2,000 cyclists. This was our fundraiser, but also an important way to get people out and see the city from a different perspective. And also we brought in speakers through a speaker series to help people in our community think about the potential or what could be by providing insight into initiatives in other cities across the United States. And through that experience, we, over time, were able to change. We certainly, not just I, but other people, collectively through the community of Pittsburgh, were able to change the narrative from one that was dominated by the business leaders to a process that engaged the entire community. But an important moment in this period really also catalyzed some thinking on my part in the city at large. And it was a report done by Richard Florida, who was then a professor at the Heinz School of Public Policy, that looked at the role of quality of place in attracting people working in the tech sector. And this became an important catalyst for conversation in the city of Pittsburgh about the role of design. And through Teresa Hines' leadership at the Hines Endowments, the philanthropic community came to support and invest in a number of initiatives like the Community Design Center to say design matters. And one of the initiatives that grew out of that was the Hines Endowments convening the Pittsburgh Civic Design Coalition, of which I was a member, that worked together to promote quality design as a central feature of Pittsburgh and the surrounding region. And we did that through hosting a civic design exchange, taking 30 Pittsburgh leaders to Chattanooga, Tennessee. We also held a series of mayoral candidates forums that were focused on design to ensure that that was a part of the conversation. And this is where I really became involved in advocacy as part of the coalition, providing public testimony as well as writing editorials that spoke to the importance of design in the community. And this really led me to really think about what influences cities or communities' attitudes towards planning and design. What is it that makes Chicago the city it is, that really focuses on design? Why is it so hard in other places to make it important? And I was fortunate to receive a grant that enabled me to travel and meet with leaders of organizations and initiatives across the country that were focused on engaging the public, and became part of the Association of Architecture Organizations and understanding the role of AIA chapters like BSA that have storefront spaces that invite people in and programming to involve them in design. And also the importance of political leadership and ensuring that they see the value in design. And that in turn brought me to Cambridge 10 years ago for a Loeb Fellowship, where I had the extraordinary opportunity to dive into the resources of Harvard and connect with people working in this area, also to apply the skills and experience I had working in Pittsburgh to other communities and even the global beginning to think globally. And we visited Mumbai, which really helped me to appreciate that while each community is different, there is a consistent interest in how we think about involving people and think about the future of our cities. And that in turn led me to the opportunity to lead the Rudy Bruner Award for Urban Excellence at the Bruner Foundation, which has allowed me to to build travel into my daily life, but to also begin to build more platforms for engaging people in dialogue about design in cities. We've done this through a partnership with Harvard and the Loeb Fellowship, and more recently brought it back here to Boston, partnering with Northeastern University this spring on the Inspiring Design series. So it's really been exciting for me to take this love of place and interest in engaging people in place through my work, through my career. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Congratulations. And it's really just so fantastic to see someone who's really dedicated their entire career to engagement and advocacy and connection to people. So it's an honor to honor you. So thank you. The part that I missed from the awards program is the loud round of applause. I wish we could fact it, because I know that's happening around the Zoom room. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would now like to invite jurors, Katie Crockett, who's a 2020 awardee, and Vivian Lee, 2014 awardee, 2014 or 15, Vivian, you'll have to correct me, to present our next award. We are so thrilled that Katie and Vivian are here to present the award to Margie Lackner. So please welcome Katie Crockett and Vivian Lee.
Thank you, Felice. Margie, the jurors were impressed with your ability to be a quiet game changer through your public transportation career in the government sphere. Through your senior roles at the MBTA, you endeavored to elevate the level of design while humanizing the public realm. shining a spotlight on sustainability, accessibility, safety, and community connections. You have promoted the integration of public art, not only through your work, but on community boards and juries, recognizing the opportunity for design and local art to promote a sense of public ownership through inspiration. Through project collaborations and volunteer programs, you have mentored many by setting an example and encouraging professional development. A consistent thread through your career, mentoring, and community service has been the perspective that excellent public design promotes social justice. Congratulations on your well-deserved recognition for your broad impact on design in the public realm.
Well, I'm Vivian Lee, and I just want to say, we in Massachusetts are so fortunate to have a number of dedicated and talented individuals working in government. Certainly one of the superstars in state government is Margie Lackner. Margie has been at the MBTA for nearly 20 years, it's like 19 and a half years. She's one of those public officials that you may not have heard of before, since she is one of the most modest individuals and just goes about doing her work in her quiet way. An architect, an infrastructure architect for more than 45 years, first in New York and now here in Boston. Margie is the MBTA Deputy Chief for Quality Assurance and Quality Control, having been promoted from her previous role as the MBTA's Director of Design and Architecture. Her supervisor, Chris Brennan, who wrote in support of her award nomination, cited Margie's leadership in establishing processes oriented towards improving the quality of both design and construction for MBTA projects. Margie is known for ensuring that design quality and aesthetics are the underlying principles in achieving accessibility, sustainability, durability, and safety. Twice, she was asked to serve as the interim director of transit-oriented development, in addition to all the other things that she had to do in her own job, in everything from project management, architecture, engineering, wayfinding. Frankly, I think that the MBTA was trying to find a way to clone her, particularly because of her respect for all transit users, regardless of income or background, and because of her leadership in helping to transform how we view public transportation. Some of you may even remember Margie when she worked at FAIA or when she worked for the Central Artery Project in the late 1990s, when she was the lead architect on the Charles River Crossing and on the Sumner-Callahan Tunnel to Sullivan Square. She is the one behind the scenes asking the questions and then working with her colleagues around the visual and functional design of bridges, of tunnels, infrastructure, utilities, pedestrian environments and crossings, and urban design and public art. How fitting it is today, just as Congress a few days ago passed a $1.2 trillion, not billion, $trillion infrastructure package, that we honor a woman who has been a leader in our Commonwealth in promoting accessibility, aesthetics, public art, climate consideration as integral parts of design. I know there are a number of you here today who've been mentored by Margie, and I want to share my own personal experience with her. In January of 2020, right before everything shut down due to COVID, Margie and I spent part of 2 days at the BSA, serving as jurors, reviewing submissions for the lighting of the Lechmere Viaduct. There were more than 40 proposals, and a number of the other jurors like to talk a lot. Now, Margie was very selective and strategic in what she weighed in on, and she carried the day. Not only did she speak about the design elements, but she actually spoke about how the public could view the project. She spoke about long-term maintenance of this project. She talked about how we're going to fund the project and about how the lighting project could piggyback on the schedule of the MBTA's capital project for the Green Line to save time and money. 10 days later, this is in February of 2020, Margie arranged for the design competition organizers to meet with MBTA staff from several departments to talk about how to proceed with making the lighting project a reality. I have to confess, the design competition organizers were stunned at how she could move things through the bureaucracy so quickly. It was pretty clear to all of us outsiders that Margie enjoys great respect within the MBTA organization. Margie, congratulations on this much deserved recognition from the BSA's Design in Women, as well as from grateful residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now let's celebrate Margie as she is presented with her award.
Marky Wagner, we are so honored to present you with this year's 2021 Boston Society of Architects Women in Design Award of Excellence. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie and Vivian, for your generous and enthusiastic introduction. Eti Padmadaputro for your validation and nomination. Chris Brennan, Andrea D'Amato, and Gretchen von Grossman for your letters of recommendation and for recognizing the work that I do. You have all taught me so much about how gratifying it is to work in service to the public. Thank you to the BSA Women in Design Award Program for the recognition this award brings for expanded definitions of practice, agency, and the political process. With the passage of the infrastructure bill, we need to engage infrastructure architects and urban designers as integrated members of design teams and to have high standards and guidelines for quality of work. My mother told me that when she walked with me as a child, I was always seeing something that nobody else saw. We all have our own unique perceptions, whether we were born that way or have had experiences that trained us. Much of my work at the MBTA has been about shifting the perception of what the design challenge truly is. In the MBTA's world of trains, power, bridges, and tunnels, I work closely with consultants and MBTA project leadership to ensure that the needs of people, the ultimate beneficiary, are elevated in the design. I work to design lasting quality focused on the human experience and expect everyone to deliver their highest quality work, giving them the space and support to achieve it, just as my parents did for me. My 98-year-old mother is online right now watching me deliver this thank you. This image is of the Lechmere replacement viaduct, as an illustration of the default perception that is so frequently used to treat the design challenge as one that is civil, structural, traffic, or architectural engineers that designers can solve. While this is often true, it is quite often actually an urban design and or infrastructure architecture challenge. I've worked to bring properly qualified professionals into integrated teams with equal voice and shared understanding. Many architects think that they can perform urban design and infrastructure architecture work, but they cannot do this without the necessary background and experience. It is only with true, open, and respectful collaboration from project conception through project completion that excellence can be achieved. Let us walk through the story of the Christina and John Markey Memorial Pedestrian Bridge at Wonderland Station as an example. This is along the boulevard at Revere Beach some time ago. The city of Revere requested the consultant to design an iconic bridge to celebrate the connection between Wonderland Station and the Revere Beach Reservation. Revere Beach is a National Historic Landmark, the first ocean beach in the United States acquired for public recreation. The design team chose a cable stay bridge. This was a great choice. The initial design featured the bridge as the star of the show. It was clear, however, that the star of the show was actually the beautiful Crescent Beach. We needed to shift the focus from the bridge to the beach, using the design of the bridge to accomplish this. MBTA project controls supported my request to engage infrastructure architecture and urban design expertise in the value engineering process. This value engineering team member presented a cable stay bridge design concept that highlighted the beach and included elements that reflected the delicate Victorian pavilions. The value engineering process shifted the perception of the design team. As a result, the city of Revere added the urban designer infrastructure architect to the preliminary design team. This led to further to the inclusion of an internationally recognized design firm on the design build team for final design. It also led to the engagement of a lighting artist who contributed to the celebratory nighttime environment. Art, together with good design, is the ultimate humanizing experience. Not every project is business as usual. Bringing the right team to the table, including urban designers, infrastructure architects, and artists, to integrate engineering, design, and human experience matters. If we work inclusively and respectfully, the process will be most efficient and the product most effective, functional, durable, and delightful. This is just one of the many stories that illustrate the importance of navigating whatever system we work in to achieve the best outcome. The messages are all the same. Good design is about treating everyone with dignity. Trust your perceptions and act on them. If you're wrong, you will learn. My hometown, Pittsburgh, let's hear it for Pittsburgh today, huh? Fred Rogers' mother told him to look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. They will invest in you and support your goals. John Carey, founding executive director of the Autodesk Impact Design Foundation, delivered a commencement address to the University of New Mexico School of Architecture and Planning in 2013. In it, he said, "Dignity is to the public interest design field what justice is to the more established field of public interest law. It is about knowing your intrinsic worth and seeing that worth reflected in the places you live and work, and the systems and services you rely on. Consider working in the public sector. The work we do affects a broad population of all abilities and means, and we want and need the best and most talented workforce that is equally diverse in every way. I myself was reluctant to work in the public sector before I joined the MBTA. What I discovered as time passed is that there is great need and great opportunity to exercise creativity and to deliver quality, great satisfaction in serving one's community, and great pleasure in working with the brilliant, dedicated, and talented colleagues that I work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. That was just fabulous. And a very special welcome to your mom. I'm so glad you're here to join us today. So congratulations to all of you. I think, we've all listening to you are realizing that, you have had a direct impact on each and every one of us in all of the places that we've experienced and the public at large, but that includes us. And we just thank you for your approach and in your wonderful journey. So congratulations. And now Well, I would love to introduce jurors Sherry Ruane, who's a 2020 awardee, and Elisa Young to present our next award. We're thrilled that Sherry and Elise are here to present the award to Hansy Barraza. So please welcome Sherry and Elise.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on this side of the conversation after 2020. And I have to say, it was a really high quality year. I hear it's that way every year, but I feel like this year was like really extra high quality. There were so many awesome submissions, and it was completely inspiring to read each and every submission. So my job is to share the jury notes, and it's really hard just to keep it to the jury notes because since I first read Hansy's application, I've taken a deeper dive. I wouldn't call it stalking. I would just say it was more of an admiration research, but there's so much amazing information behind what makes you, you, and it's pretty impressive. Just as founding principal of Studio Luz, I feel like there's been so much new thinking introduced into the world that alone is impressive. But for those of you that are curious, don't hesitate to research. I think really what's moving and clear is that your work and your teaching are so clearly focused on the intersection of design methods, social practices, and especially equity. And the jury saw that very clearly. So what we heard from everyone, myself included, but this is just a brief summary. Hansy, you really stood out for the quality of your design work. It was incredibly beautiful and thoughtful and so grounded in the place and the program. There was so much attention placed on this context, and the details really told a story through all scales of your work. There is a clear advocacy and, you know, I want to say like standing up for underrepresented communities in a way that is incredibly consistent. And it's beyond sort of like doing what's right. It's clearly a part of your design practice. And you use your voice to elevate those that, you know, haven't been able to. And that is, I think, something we all aspire to. Clearly a connector and an engaging leader. All of the architectural installations that were included in your package and that I, again, secretly researched later, are provocative and really have started, I think, people talking in productive dialogues that would not have otherwise happened. And so a lot of that is she a incredibly talented architect and inspiring as just a practitioner, but you're a dedicated mentor, and everyone at the end agreed we need more Hansys, which I thought is about as good as it gets. So once we figure out cloning, you're going to be first up. And with that, I would like to pass it over to Elise.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, and I second everything that you mentioned. I think myself and the jury felt completely inspired after reading through your nomination. And it is my honor today to be able to introduce you, though I don't think I can really cover all of your excellence in 1 minute, but I will certainly try. And I'm personally honored to do this intro because I think Hansy, like myself, comes from very humbled beginnings, and she also represents 2% of the minority architects licensed here in the US. Her 20+ years of commitment, her drive, her talents and passions have not only grown and grounded her firm, Studio Luz, but have also impacted art communities here throughout Boston and globally in ways that architecture, design, and the arts should. An architect, a designer, a mentor, an author, the list definitely goes on, but her work has not only shaped the city of Boston, but her voice has also been an advocate for so many here in Boston that have been voiceless. We are in complete awe of you and the work that you have done. We are completely inspired. And as Sherry mentioned, we really wish we can clone you. And all the work that you have done selflessly throughout your years. Congratulations and thank you. And I personally am excited to see what you have in store for the future. And I will be calling you many more times after our intro call just to pick your brain. So congratulations, very, very, very well deserved.
Hansy, Barraza, we are here to present to you the Boston Society of Architects Women in Design 2021 Award of Excellence. Congratulations.
Gracias, Yanel. Congratulations.
Wow, that was really inspiring, Sherry, Ron. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Elise Young, for that thoughtful introduction. I am honored to be a recipient of this prestigious Women in Design Award and in good company. So congratulations as well to Anne-Marie Lubenau and Margie Lackner. Thank you so much for this recognition. It will fuel me to continue to do the work that I do. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share a bit about my personal story, my practice, and my urgency of mapping out a future where the architecture discipline evolves and provides opportunity to build a more equitable and sustainable built environment. In Toni Morrison's essay, Home, Morrison writes, "A home is a memory and friends to share that memory." My interest in architecture began with a particular yearning to build a beautiful house for my mom and I, a home to inspire and to protect us, a home that would create a sense of belonging. Yet the word house, housing, home feels at times so presumptuous. We reference the word many times. It's what connects us as designers. Where do you live? Did you build your house? Do you own or do you rent? At times we unmistakably assumes people's past lived experience or current situation. What drove me to the discipline was a sense of longing, a longing for stability. I felt pursuing a degree in architecture at Cornell University would do this. I didn't have the most traditional path when it came to entering the discipline. What I did have were caring mothers, and that's plural, guidance counselors that guided me all the way through. I have an admiration for women, especially Black women, who were my mentors. It was through this support that I have been able to grow into the architect that I am today. Now, my architecture practice serves as a tool for addressing and educating the public about social inequities, initiating community-led conversations, and facilitating human interaction. So why is this award so important to me? Not sure if it's due to the fact that I was raised by my single mother, but I tend to lean onto women. I have so in the past, and I still do today. This is one of the reasons this award is so important to me. I am being recognized by my peers, all strong advocates that keeps pushing the profession forward. After today, I will proudly stand by committee chairs Felice Silverman and Yanel de Angel, the jurors, the past recipients, to push towards better representation of future recipients. I thank those that privately emailed me stating, "It was about time, you so deserve this." It was not because I was overlooked. The submission requirement for the award, to be honest, was overwhelming, time-consuming, and expensive. I am also a person that is constantly doing and did not take a full stop of looking at all that I've done for the profession. These past 2 years have been very challenging, if any, taxing. I've been honored that many colleagues have called upon me to provide feedback on what do we do to make this profession more inclusive. It was during this time of extra labor being called upon these past 2 years where I realized that my projects, which includes raising our 2 beautiful kids, the community engagement work that I do, the inclusion and equity policies that I advocate for through coursework, and our love for designing with purpose has had an impact. One of the projects that I am most proud of completing is Social Latina, which transformed a 3-story residential building into a vibrant multi-use space that supports mentorship and civic engagement for Latinx community youth in Boston. And now I stand behind all these wonderful, accomplished women. I'm here today to tell you that I'm grateful for this recognition. As a Latinx architect, originally immigrated from Barranquilla, Colombia, and co-founder of Studio Luz Architects with Anthony Piermarini, equity, diversity, and justice are central to my practice and ethos. Climate justice and action are critical factors in correcting some of the wrongs in the built environment. Access to clean air, food, housing, and water are essential human rights, and it's my deep belief that this should be reflected in how we build and live in our urban spaces. I believe that we need to release preconceived ideas of what architecture is supposed to be, and instead focus on what it can do to potentially create connections, to bring a more just planet and make more just community. Ultimately, I believe that architecture can help us reimagine society through radical change and transformation. In addition to serving as principal at Studio Luz, I'm also an academic teaching architecture and urban design courses at the Rhode Island School of Design. I'm a tenured professor at RISD, where I've established myself as a leader in decolonizing design curriculum and have focused much of my work on teaching social justice and sustainability to my students. My interest also falls in the area of pre- and post-colonial urbanism while considering their effects on environmental and social change in the built environment. I've taught courses on subjects that dismantle contemporary and historical exclusionary practice that serves as tools for upholding colonialism, gentrification, racism, sexism, and homophobia. One of the course, in particular, Hidden Figures, explores the hidden figures and their contributions, often excluded in the Western canon. More broadly, I've taught and brought my expertise to Harvard last semester, where I taught courses about erasure of women and BIPOC designers in academia. War the Utopian Visionary, Architecture of Social Exchange is a book I wrote that looks at innovative, low-cost architecture being practiced throughout the world. My academic work operates as an extension of my practice and demonstrates the ways in which architecture can act as a voice for underestimated communities. I hope that my project have a social impact because currently my work with Studio Luz is doing affordable housing and public art, university work that interfaces with communities. I hope to go forward with this journey with a sense of care and urgency. As a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I work to address community concerns and systematic underrepresentation. With this award, it gives me a purpose to continue on with this work that I've been pushing for. I would like for our communities to have equitable access to education and institutions. I would also like for our institutions to radically reverse the flow of power and provide opportunities for our laborers, our art handlers, those from low-income background, caregivers, entrepreneurs, activists, to have an opportunity in shaping policy and in their environment. Thank you for recognizing me today and for opening up the space for other BIPOC designers to join me in the future with this award. Thank you.
Congratulations, Hansy. That was fantastic. And I have to tell you that the entire jury was just like, we have to go meet her. We have to go meet her. So expect a barrage of invitations. I think everyone who just listened to your presentation is going to be on that list as well. But it's just so wonderful, all of the work that you've been doing. And it's just a honor to honor you as well. So we will work on cloning. That seems to be a theme today, that we need to be cloning all of our awardees. So that's something we can look towards the future for as well. So what an inspiration all of these women are. Once again, thank you to all of our sponsors, our committee, our jurors, and thank you to all of you for joining us here to honor these amazing women.
And when we pause to reflect on past winners, we are inspired by the path these women have opened for others, as we heard today. So please think about those women who have mentored you, have inspired new generations, have made significant contributions in their line of work, and please consider nominating them in 2022.
So this concludes our program, but we hope we've got about 5 minutes left until 1:30. We hope you can stay on for a little bit more and join a quick breakout session, just like our post-lunch networking. If so, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and share your video, and then switch to gallery mode. And through the magic of Zoom, we will break out into some smaller groups and say hello. So thank you all, and we hope to see you again next year, and hopefully in person next year. Congratulations to all.